still setting stuff up.
Yes,
Is that the
miss.
program?
No, actually, that was a program from last Saturday. But, oh, Eric, didn't pass on to you what we're doing? I'm sorry.
I have something that came from a few days ago.
Okay.
To
So
my
we have Bach.
G minor.
Are you Noelle?
Yeah, that's
Noelle.
Noelle.
Okay.
We have Bach, and then Saison.
Okay. And I'm doing some Mir Daniel.
Yeah. And then Stacy.
Okay.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and being with us. Welcome to this master class with a very, very wonderful artist. I was just saying to her, you know, the last time she was here with us, the students that she worked with have already graduated from college, so it's been a little while. But we're very happy to have Miss Jennifer Coe with us today, and this is provided to us by the Philadelphia Chamber Music Society, which is a very gracious thing. We're very thankful that Jennifer Coe is with us, that the Philadelphia Chamber Music Society is so helpful here in Philadelphia, and all three of these wonderful students are here to play for her. So the first performer today is Noelle Schreiber Eden, and Noelle is playing the Bach G minor sonata. Yeah, right, gotta get it right. I'm a trumpet player, what can I say? And the first and the fourth movements, correct? Okay, Noelle?
a musical level, the very first chord, it's very different from the A minor. So the first chord, I would think about how you want to voice the G minor chord. And what do I mean by that? I mean by that, what is the most important notes and how do you want to break it and how do you want to bring those out? So how I think I heard you playing it is basically a split of 2 plus 2, if that makes sense. Let's just hear that first chord once more. Yeah, so, okay. So what do you think is the primary line? Yes. So how I would suggest breaking that chord is to just go basically 1 plus 2 plus 1. Does that make sense? So that you are holding much more, that we hear the weight of the G. So really, that's what we're hearing the most, and we're almost just passing through the minor part, which is the B flat. Yeah. Yeah. And so I want to hear the weight. Good. And then let's see how much we can make a more continuous line. now we're going to focus on the consistency. Good. I'm still seeing you slow down a little bit. It's, it's a thing because we're always taught, like, make a straight bow, right? Yeah. And so we're taught to be totally in control, which, yes, you don't want your bow out of control. But then once you learn those basics, the next step is how do we create, like, very ringing, seamless sound, which does create, you might feel like you're slightly out of control. But that's okay. So you use gravity much more. Good. Yeah, and where is the tension there? Right, that's the real tension. Yeah, and I want you to feel the kind of pain of that interval. And so now let's really bring out these two voices. And we're going to keep our vibrato consistent. Yeah. Let's see. I want you to look at your hand because one of the things that I think we can think about is if we're vibrating, even between the notes, our hands should move. Because otherwise, it's like so much effort to start and stop and then restart, right? Yeah. Do you see how it's stopping between your slide? Yeah. See if you can just continue. Good. That's seamless. Good. How much time do we have? Or will you let me know? Because I'm very
I
fast.
think we should do about a half an hour per student and then make a couple minutes of questions, if that's okay.
Great. So just let me know because sometimes I go over. Okay. Yes. I think in general, you should always do that with both feet. It's an important part of maintaining ring on the instrument, right? So, right, this is me slowing. That's not flowing, and you can hear it still ringing, right? And then where's the line? It's here's the, so F sharp to the E. Yeah, and even, so again, that bow speed continuing and legato really singing. So for right now, I want you to only play the melodic content. And your bow speed. Good. Now I want you to pay attention to your left hand and see if you're doing a consistent sound in the bottom. Good. That's excellent with the left hand. And can you tell that being a violinist is very detail-oriented? Okay, so now we want to also add in the legato with the consistent bow speed, right? So it should be ya ya da 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 ya da ya ya da 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 ya da. going to be like how we like meld those two sides together. Think about the bow. Good. And now the vibrato on the first finger. Good, much better. And we're going to close our phrase. Versus. Right here. So let's just do that trill. Yeah. So it's about joining it smoothly without bow speed into the B flat. Just try once more. Yeah. So it's on the frog, right? It's going to be still about that seamless change. Good. And see if you can use even more of your fingers. Good. Much more seamless. Okay. Now we can add all of the notes. Vibrato. Okay. Sometimes a good way to think of it, even though, so this is the thing, when we talked about continuously using our hand to move. So even though you're playing other notes, you can still vibrate, even while you're playing the open strings. And the same is true between putting down your fingers. If your hand is just consistently moving, then you'll have a consistent vibrato. I want you to stare at your hand. Okay, let's keep going. Let's sing even more. It's almost like a recitative. So it's almost uncertain, right? Here it's pretty like, okay, this is a statement. That's your statement. But then we don't know where we're going. And then here still. Okay? Yeah. And you can even, in terms of rhythm, because these are he writes it in really long beats, right? So there's so many kind of flourishes. So why does he write it in that way? Unlike the presto movement, which is at the end, which is like very precise and smaller values. It's because the phrasing needs to be larger, right? So you have freedom within the larger beats, which means that you can don't worry about, right, rhythm. quartet, right? This is, I don't know, viola. And then it's another instrument, cello, second viola, whatever, right? Now sopranos entering. And here, we still want them to go, let's call them second violin. We still want the second violinist to have their same voice, right? So the coloration between each kind of character, if we think of this as a string quartet, has to remain, even though sometimes those lines break or they pause, right? So in a string quartet, every instrument isn't playing constantly at the same time, right? So for example, here, you basically are just going, right? That's one voice. And then here, and then. So how we want that character to sound is one way, right? And then we have, let's call them viola second. Right? But then this guy, also different characters. When the first violinist or soprano line comes in, really have them singing. Yeah, good, even more. Yeah, even though it's not a G. Good, it's on that G, good. Yeah, sing again from the G, the first violin is coming in, once more. Yeah, and you can separate out that, I'll call the first violinist the she, gender. And then different instrument. Okay. Different instrument, and that same singing. As soon as she comes back. So every time we have the soprano coming, every time we have the alto, right? Every time the bass, the cello comes in, we want them to still have the same character, right? Just like each individual quartet member will always have their personal sound, right? And so that's what we want to do here. So let's start. Let's start from here. So this guy is going to be a little darker, maybe. Okay, and then the new voice comes. Now singing. Is to separate out really the characters. Decide what you want. I would recommend that, especially when you have this top line that is much more singing, I think sometimes it can be hard to think, okay, just consistent vibrato, just like smooth sound, blah, blah, blah. So maybe if we think of it in terms of certain new people entering the room and entering, right? So even here, I want you to think immediate vibrato whenever the soprano voice of the first violin comes in. Let's just try that once more. So every time you get to those notes, really make sure you're thinking about vibrating from the very beginning. She stopped singing for a little bit here, but then she comes back here and then there. So let's try from here. Okay, so let's just only right now, let's only play the soprano line. That's our second violin. Yeah, so second violin, and then I'm going to play, how about this? I'll play the second violin, you only play first violin. Yeah.
Where's the second violin as well? Okay.
Don't forget the G. Here. Yeah, so let's start from here. Okay, so that's basically how you want to start thinking about it. Right, so we want to really always create that relationship. Think really 4 different instruments, okay? And always think, okay, this is the character when the soprano is here. Let's just try that once more. We're going to do the same thing from here. So now, as another exercise, I can play the soprano line, and then I want you to have a different character.
Okay.
Okay? So let's start from the same place. So you have to play the viola. has their own character.
Okay.
So when you're looking through this movement, that's what I really want you to think about, right? So this is easy in a way to discern because you have chords, right? When we're thinking about the last movement, I know we have to move on because I'm always behind. When we think about the last movement, it seems like all one voice, right? Because we just have consistent notes running.
Yeah.
However, it's not. It's like you have a string quartet still. So, for example, this is one person, you can see here, that enters back here, that enters back here, right? So if we just think of it in the most extreme way, like just the hugest differences, right? Let's just think of it in terms of very top line and then cello line, right? So when we also do this, even though they're all single notes, again, you have different instruments and different character, okay? Even though it's going fast. Okay, so when you practice it, I want you again to think about, okay, what do I want the first violin to sound like? What do I want the cello to sound like? Right? Because oftentimes also with cello, you know, especially if it's continuo, they're not going to be, right? Because there's a support of a different line.
Okay.
And so when we spoke about the voicing, even the very first chord, that's what I meant, right? So cello, and then the first violin. Because if we're in the, let's say, viola and second violin, if we were going to be unmusical, as soon as the cello came in, we'd be, right? But so how we want to think about it is how would we shape all the voices? Right, so thinking about those voices, we want to think about, okay, how would the cellist give this line to the violist, give it to the first, and then back to cello or whatever. Okay? So think character.
Okay.
Yay! Okay. Which sonata are you doing?
Singing sonatas, the second movement.
Okay.
Next performer is Daniel Kim.
Gee.
Thinking of Daniel Kim, our alumni. That's bad from you folks. And we'll be playing the fugue from this same Bach sonata. Daniel is a student of Charles Parker, and I neglected to give credit to Noelle's teacher, Guillaume Combet.
actually amazing because usually most people like crunch a lot on the fugues, right? Because there's so many chords, and you're very careful about not doing that, which is great. I would I would love sometimes to be able to have a little bit more fullness in the chords. And why do I say that? It's so that we can see that there are multiple voices going on, for example, here. But right now, what I would like to, let's work backwards, because last time we worked forwards, and we barely got through to the, like, I think we got 4 lines in. Okay, so, for example, when you're here, I'm hearing you take a lot of time on almost every cadence, right? And I feel that here as well, right? And what I would love to hear is that the line is continuing, right? So here, let's see, can we really start from the back? Okay, so here, okay, let's just start from here. So here, right, not so interesting, right? So it's, that stuff that's interesting, okay? So, that's interesting. So you can take time there, but don't take any time anywhere else, okay? And really sing on the top, okay? Because this is the interesting stuff. Okay? Yeah, see if we can vibrate throughout all of the notes. Yeah, it's hard, right? The other thing that I would consider is use more hope. Yeah. Yeah. And no time. So. If you're going to take time, do it there. So here, where's that? Yes, so here, I would love it if you continue to sing, right? So this is interesting, right? Right, that progression. So I'm hearing now this, which is great, but I also want to hear the top progression. Okay, so what's also why am I like don't take time and stuff like that? It's because we want to hear this progression, right? The tops. And that's why I'm also saying sing out. So it's like it's sol, fa, mi, right? So you have a downward motion there, and then the motion goes up, right? On the top voice. Okay. Yeah. So the second, when it repeats, it's also musical. Yeah, so both, right? Sorry. Right, so it's both, and it's also, so it's both that A as well as this top A, right? And both this B flat as well as that B flat. So he's kind of bringing out the intensity by creating through a horizontal line an octave, right? very dry, I think. It's super tight. Now I would love if you use more bow. So even. So use, I would say, yeah. Yeah, and do it without slowing down. So just see right now as much ringing as you can get. So you know how we were talking about bow speed and not slowing down? I think your sound would become much fuller if you don't slow between your bows, right? So between your up bows and down bows. Because what I'm hearing is, right? So try to use as much bow as possible, not on the lower G's, but on the top. So that makes me feel like you have confidence in your interpretation, right? So let's just try that once more using all of that bow. And let's see if it's possible not to slow down, just for now, as an exercise, in terms of time, right? And just see if you can use as much bow as possible consistently. So that's the kind of sound that I'm looking for. Yada-da-da-da-da-da, 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 right? And then the trick is how you do the string cross, right? So let's just try that once more with tons of bow and totally even and no time. So this is something I would love to hear much more of. Let's try the other 16th section. Yeah, let's just try from here. So here, if we can have even more singing. So I'm using probably double the amount of bow, I'd say, than you are. And vibrate, right? You still have this line from here. Right, so this is, I want to hear this descending line, and then how it starts ascending once more. Okay? Yeah, and then there. Yeah. Right, so those, I want to hear that ascent. Just try. I want to hear how musically you want to shape that line. Just play those notes. Okay. Let's have it even more even ascent, like in terms of dynamics. Okay, great. Now let's add the other notes. I lost a little on that F sharp. let's just play the skeleton. Good. Now add the others. And then I want more on the A now. Yeah, so not interesting. Right, so. Right, that's the, it's not the D. Yeah, so the key is how do we make that bow change without making an accent? Or how do we bring out the second note? Right, so instead of I'm hearing the articulation, right? So see if you can do, so that's the bow speed, right? So instead of going as articulation, right, I'm going in vowel, right? And then if you see the bow speed, right, very little on the D, because that's not the most important. So I'm going to go in super slow motion. So you see how tiny the bow is amount on the D. Yeah, so literally look at your bow and go super slow motion. So you're going to use this much of the frog, okay? More bow. More bow. Good. Okay. Now let's try it like in fast motion, in normal tempo. Think about the bow distribution though. Now don't be afraid. I think you're doing it because you're afraid of the string crossing. I think that's why you're taking time, right? Good. So now, what I would love to hear, just play the progression. I want to hear the, I want to hear the, right, so these progressions. Okay. Okay, they all sound the same. I want to hear, like, what's going to be more dynamically, what's going to be less. Probably the most, right, is on the first. That's what's super expressive, right? Yeah, so go back to one before that. Yeah, da 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 da. Good. Okay, now let's see, add the other notes. That's going to be the most important material. Good. Yeah, but finish your phrase. Yeah, love playing the violin or just being a musician, right? Is we don't want to be held back by our technique, right? Or because of the physicality of the chord, right? We always have to think musically, right? So even when you're like, for example, slow practicing, I want you to always practice musically. So even if you're like, oh, I have to work on my memory. I still want you to bring out all of the lines. So let's just, and musically with vibrato, fullness of bow. So let's just try that really slowly. And I want you to focus on vibrating everything and using like all of your bow. Try to carve it because I'm hearing a lot of, and okay. Pay attention also to your left hand to see if that soprano line is vibrating all the way down. Good. Now, less. So really sitting. It's not that we're going to necessarily play exactly like that, right? But what we want to do is be able to really embed in our heads that that's our long line. So really, for right now, really sing out that top. Yeah. Yeah. And don't be afraid of using bow. And sing. Vibrate. For right now, let's, where are we, sorry? There. So let's forget these chords. What we're going to shape, just play these for me and super shape them musically. Okay, all of them. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. I'm feeling like the line sounds really lumpy. So think, really sing it. Yes. So, and why is it hard right now? Right, doing just the single thing? It's because we've been thinking so much in the habit of, oh my God, chord, right? So we're not thinking as much musically in terms of the line. So let's just try that once more. Just think of singing out that line. Okay, now let's add all of the other stuff, and let's keep in mind that we want to do as much of that singing voice as we can. Okay, so I can already hear that it's changed. So see if you can just focus in on, you know, if you make a mistake on the chords, it's fine. But let's just focus on that, keeping that melodic line. Okay, let's do it once more, and I would love to have a little bit more smoothness in the line. Good. So that feels like you have a long line. That sounds so great. Okay, so we're running close on time. At least we worked through the last page, kind of. So The same thing here, right? We know that this is a triad, right? So I would love to be able to hear the length of this all of throughout the bar versus right, so longer lines. So you're holding on to that F natural. Sorry, where is this? Yeah, but actually what's way more important is this, right? The top. So this is how what I'm hearing from you. Right? That doesn't quite make sense. Just start from there. Seeing the tops. I'm still hearing that F natural. I wonder if it's because you see the bar line, and then you're like, oh, let me bring up just do from the top of that progression, da 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 da. Keep long line. Good. Okay. So, what I would love for you to think about is when you see all of these different lines and progressions. So this is an example where, for example, in the presto, right? These are long lines. These are all horizontal notes, right? But there's a larger chordal structure, right? So, for example, here, I want you to really think about what is the important line. Da 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 da, right? Going downwards in motion, right? So when you even practice it, because I think what I noticed in this passage at the very end, when you started hearing really the voice, then you took time musically in the places you should, if that makes sense, to sing out the actual material that's moving, right? Versus sometimes it's a physical thing, right, with chords, or sometimes it's like, oh, I see a bar line. Let me slow down, right? So that's something I would love for you to kind of think about as you work through this fugue. And it's a great exercise with fugues because you have to think with so many voices going on at the same time, just like we did in the first movement as well. And they don't always continue, right? So it's not like the cello is this entire time. Right? So, right? So those are like, for example, the different instruments that are coming in. Right? But what I'd love for you to focus on is those longer lines and progressions. Right? Also here, the way you're splitting your chords, right? Think about what is moving, right? So just play the moving. Okay, and almost in a way, Bach is oftentimes when the pitches go up, dynamically it goes up. Oftentimes when pitches go down, dynamically it goes down. There's no absolute rule for everything, but this is pretty common for Bach. So when you're doing this progression, think yon, don, 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 yon, don, 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 don. Okay? Yeah, but then the E flat's the most important, right? Do you see how you're because it's a down bow, right? Dun, dun. Yeah. So I right? So what I'm hearing in terms of the rubato. So, but think really even progression. So try almost legato and don't take time for right now. Okay, so when you're practicing it, then do this again when you practice it. I want you to think legato, even, right? So no accents and no time. Right, and I want you to really listen to the direction that the notes are going. So, and then down, and then back up. Not. Right, I want you to just go evenly. This is for practicing, right? How about this? Use your entire bow. Use your whole bow. Same tempo. Yada, yada. Good. So now, when you do, we're running away to C sharp. How long? When does the master class end?
Well,
4:30?
When does it end?
One thing was said that it's 4:30 and one said at 5, so
Okay. So, okay.
they start closing the building at 5 today,
Oh, got it.
so
So
we need
should
to,
ready for that.
well, we got
Okay.
a little time.
So for just right now let's use the whole bow. This is, again, as an exercise. And keep that line on the top, okay? Whole bow, whole bow. Whole bow, whole bow. Yeah, but that's still important, right, the C sharp? La. Where is this? That's so important. Very low. Yeah. Okay, and why is it important not to take time on this cadence? That's your cadence. It's not, right? So I'll just show you here. This is how it goes. Right, so that's your actual cadence. It's not on the bottom, right? So that's why we don't want to take all this time. Right? So just do this last bar once more. I'm still hearing time. Yeah. Good. So that's your cadence, right? So there are reasons why we're not going to take time going into certain things. so we really want to think about all of these separate lines and how they relate. Because sometimes, you know, there will be other stuff in between, but really, so this is connected to here, right? Okay, good, excellent.
Our next performer is Naomi Jean Main. She's going to be performing the Saint-Saëns Concerto in B minor, the Allegro Moderato. Is that right? No, that's it.
You guys, somebody has a score?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, so the first thing I would say is courage. So don't worry about breaking into, I feel like I want to hear courage going into slides and shifts, right? Because I'm hearing you do it cleanly and jumping. So let's just start from the very opening. So here, I think partly what it might be is I want to hear more on your up bows. So I'm hearing a lot of, right? So just as much expressivity on the up bows as the down bows. Now even more singing. Cold. Good. Now, because this is a romantic concerto, I'm going to definitely say this is a situation where I would say vibrate every single note, right? And from the very beginning of the note. So let's try doing that. I love now the bow arm, where it's much more legato. It sounds more espressivo to me versus articulated with a sound, so it sounds more singing. Now, even in the eighths, see if you can vibrate. A lot of times with romantic repertoire, it's the short notes that are the most important, the most expressive. So whether you're doing, like for violin repertoire, like it's like Lalo, Bruch, like all of that kind of stuff. Really always focus on vibrating short notes. Okay. Try to go even more bow and think espressivo versus, right? So think ya da da, right? So vibrato. So like, because it's so hard, like a violinist, it's like a thing, right? For every violinist, delayed vibrato, and then like what we call dead notes, right? This was something my teacher, Jamie, used to just, every single student. He still does for all his students, and now I do with all of my students. So you have to vibrate from the beginning of the note and vibrate every note. So what I'm missing is actually those eighth notes.
Okay.
Ya da ya da 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 da. So even this fourth finger I'm missing, right? And then I'm missing that note. So oftentimes when you're shifting, especially first fingers, it becomes dead. Yeah. So you can tell now, right? You can hear it? Okay, let's do it once more. Really focus on that vibrato. Yeah. So your job is going to be when you practice, make sure that your hand is continuously moving, even when you're shifting, right? So that's like a thing, right? It's going to feel weird because you're going to feel like you're only playing out of tune, right? Because your hand is not used to moving even while you're shifting. But basically what the goal is when we practice is always to merge expressivity with technique, right? Otherwise we're going to be like, oh, I'm playing in tune, but I can't be expressive. Or I'm playing expressively, oh no, everything's out of tune, right? So when we practice slowly, we want to add in all of those things. So when you're practicing slowly for this, for example, I want you to really think, vibrate every single note, including when you're shifting, and trust me, of course, you're gonna miss shifts because you're changing the physicality of your left hand, right? So I hope you don't mind that being patient. Can we just try this a little bit slowly? So. Even the shift in musical, right? So even while, this is still moving, right? Even while I'm shifting. So let's just try super slow. So when you do that, don't have confidence, because you're retraining yourself to be musical while you're working on a hard shift, right? So for right now, let's think almost in terms of glissando, just as a way to practice it. Something like that. Try that. Once more. Yeah, once more. Okay, now. Yes, so that's immediate vibrato.
Okay.
Right? And that's espressivo even in your slide. Okay, so let's just keep doing, sorry, we're gonna keep doing this. Let's go from this F sharp. And really focus on vibrating every single eighth note. I'm pretty sure you're gonna miss your shifts, but that's okay, because we're changing how we're thinking, okay? Yeah, and think again. Yeah, do it once more. Once more. Okay, good. So, ya da 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 da. Yeah, I'm missing still the almost like espressivo on your way up. We want to keep that moving for the vibrato.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just try from here. If we miss something, we're going to go the note before. We're going to go back, because it's the relationship from the note previous. Good. So this is how I want you to practice. You're practicing, yes, for intonation, but it's also about practicing when there's shifts, anything hard, you want to add in espressivity.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Okay, now we can try in tempo. So it's going to be even here, vibrated. Let's just try here from every note vibrating. So I'm seeing your hands stop. I'm going to just keep moving your hand like that, if you don't mind. Yeah. So that motion through every single note, consistently where the hand is moving, not like to the extent that I'm moving your wrist, but that's how it's going to feel different again in the left hand. So let's just try that now with vibrating even between the notes, right? Good, good. Do this octave also. right? So we're gonna exaggerate that. Good. Now add vibrato. Yeah, and now we can definitely shape more, right? Da ya da ya da da. Let's try that. Yeah, even more shape. Da ya da ya da ya. Yeah. So this is how I would recommend for any concerto, actually, that this is how we practice, or like shorter pieces is fine too, or it's important too. That's how we kind of focus on how we practice, right? So almost exaggerated phrasing. One thing, I mean, the good thing, you're recording this, right? But the good thing about recording yourself and then checking back in on it is I can almost 99.999% tell you that when you think you're doing something inside while you're playing it, it doesn't come across, right? So oftentimes if I play something and I think, oh, I've taken so much time on that note, and then I listen back and I'm like, oh, I took no time on that note, right? So when you're practicing, exaggerate the phrasing, right? Because once you go back into tempo and in performance mode, it won't be as much as you think, right? Okay, so I've gone through all this detail. So even here, I would be even more legato.
Okay.
Right, so for most of this opening, I would actually do much more legato and just think singing. I think oftentimes when we see accents, we're like, everything is like articulated on the bow, like, right, versus singing. Think of it almost as tenuto. Okay? Okay. We can play. and into here, I felt like I wanted a totally different character.
Okay.
I feel like perhaps it could be more dolce, actually. Can we try from here? This is like the second page of the plan. I can't sing that. Remember to vibrate. Yeah, so that's the most important. So I haven't played this like for a really long time. Okay, but so that means you're going expressively to the top, right? Okay. Yeah, and you can do even more slide. Good. You can go a little heavier. Sorry. You have like no chance to play all. Yeah, and here, remember, small notes, very important. Right, so, sorry. Whatever, I can't remember the notes. But the eighth notes, really, really important. Can we try from the tranquillo aside? Good. Vibrate the next. Vibrate all the way through. Yeah. So here you have the crescendo, right? And then what's fun in romantic music is that you can change the color a lot in one note, right? So that's the fun thing that violinists and singers have, or string players and singers have, right? Is that we can totally shape the note and change the color within one note, right? Whereas Peter Stricken used to say you can vibrate on the piano, but I don't actually think that was possible. So yes, so think about a lot more about the shape. So when we're practicing, it's both in the short, faster runs, as well as think, what can I do in a longer note? So even here, let's just think about this A. Just play the A as you want it to be shaped. That sounds exactly even. Good. Now exaggerate it. I saw that your vibrato was getting wider and darker. That was nice. Let's do even more of that. Good. Okay. Now let's just play this and keep that intensity of sound. And keep vibrating through this slide. Right? Because then you can create this expressivity even between the notes. Yeah, and vibrato from the beginning. Delayed, no delay. Good. Okay. So this is what I want you to really think about, is musically. So even in terms of shifting, even shifts are expressive. Right? So if I just went, that's okay, or you can vibrate, you can make a crescendo. so there's like, you know, a million ways to slide. And that's what I want you to start thinking of.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Do any of you guys have some?
It was like 4:30. I was like, oh, I should have
Do any of you guys have some questions for Ms. Coe? Here's your chance.
Oh, thank you. Oh, of course. I agree.